Hey guys, NintyFan1991 here, aka Nintendo Boy 17. So for my final review of the year, I thought to go back to two versions of one of my all-time favorite games. And as they are largely the same game, I thought I'd bring them together for one review, rather than make an extended cut later. Unless if WB gets someone to develop a remaster. Anyway, the black and white footage you see here is my really embarrassing attempt at trying to review the Gauntlet series, or at least all the games I played in said series. And as I'm doing a more focused review on a select game or two, consider this part of my re-review series. That said, I hope you enjoy. These past couple years, I've been playing quite a bit of dungeon crawling action RPGs, Baldur's Gate Dark Alliance, Minecraft Dungeons, and of course, just this year alone, Diablo 3. But all of them have been giving me an itch to revisit one of the game series to lay the groundwork for this genre, Gauntlet. And no, I don't really mean the arcade original, rather the games that introduced me to the series and genre, Legends, and its added-on port, Dark Legacy, which I remember playing the PlayStation 2 version first through my parents' own PS2, before my siblings and I got the base version on N64 for Christmas. And even if it didn't have as much content, I still had a lot of fun with. Hell, even later, I struck gold at a thrift store and got the GameCube version cheaper than it would go for on eBay. Decades have gone since their release, and when I first played them and coming back to them, how do these fare in the modern era? Let's find out. The story of Gauntlet Legends and Dark Legacy tells of the evil wizard Garm, who summons the demon Scorn, but Garm bites off more than he could chew, thinking he would control the demon, and as a consequence, Scorn sends his forces to occupy all the realms. This leads to the wise wizard Sumner, brother of Garm, to summon the mighty heroes from all the realms, from Gauntlet classics like the Warrior, Wizard, Valkyrie, and the Elven Archer, to newcomers such as the Knight, Jester, Dwarf, and Sorceress. Simple, it works, but before I move on and going into slight spoiler territory, the Dark Legacy version adds a little more story involving Garm manifesting the powers of Scorn and himself leading attacks on Sumner. Contrast that with how Garm is punished by remaining in the underworld for all eternity in the N64 version's ending. Still, not much to say about it. On to the gameplay, and as with its predecessors in the following games inspired by it, Gauntlet Legends is an isometric dungeon crawler, with light RPG mechanics carried on from Gauntlet 4 on the Genesis/Mega Drive. Though a port from arcades, there is one thing exclusive to the console games, being that you travel through a hub world, also from Gauntlet 4 and popularized by Super Mario 64, being in Sumner's Tower. On the N64, as there aren't many realms to journey, Sumner's Tower is basically a flat circle with branches. In Dark Legacy, you have all the realms from the original Legends with extensions. In the base game, the four primary realms are the Mountain Kingdom with a hell of a lot of volcanic activity, the Castle Stronghold, the town, and Ice Domain, with the fifth endgame realm set outside Sumner's Tower. In Dark Legacy, all four of those realms appear, but the town is now split into the Forsaken Province and Sky Dominion, each with new levels after you beat all the levels found in Legends. Beyond that, in Dark Legacy's expanded content, you have the Forest Realm, Desert Lands being a little too inspired by ancient Egypt, with a pyramid containing a lava lake like its power slave Exhumed, and Dream World, which is a trippy blend of going from horror themed between a demented carnival, a haunted house, going into the body of something. Well, Midway did do their job of making something disturbing, I'll give them that, into a not so scary maze inspired by classical paintings before we fight a wraith. And each game handles the opening of unlocking realms slightly differently. Otherwise, they are collectathons, but more straightforward than a platformer of the time. In Legends, you need to find all the obelisks in the realms. In Dark Legacy, you collect a lot of crystals. Hell, to unlock the wings of Sumner's Tower in Dark Legacy, leading to more levels, you need to collect golden icons, which are either in certain spots of levels or fighting gargoyles. More on them later. In both versions, you'll need to collect more well-hidden stuff like runestones, and with each of end-of-realm boss, you unlock shards, which unlock you the Underworld and Desecrated Temple respectively, to face down Scorn, and later, an undead Garm. Of course, this leads to the levels themselves, and as you'd expect from Gauntlet, they are all mazes and obstacle courses that have you face down massive armies of regenerating enemies and taking out their generators, avoiding traps in the process as you hunt for these collectibles, from foot soldiers and zombies to flat out demons and monsters, with an occasional golem in Legends as well as Death himself. In Dark Legacy, our expanded enemies include generals whom if you kill, they leave behind random loot from power-ups to food and currency, gargoyles that carry golden icons needed to unlock more of Sumner's Tower. Hell, in Dark Legacy, the golems in the Ice Domain are vicious polar bears. Damn you, Scorn, for making polar bears go all Cujo on us! Anyway, also within each realm are at least one bonus level where you must collect coins, which, if all collected, earn you an unlockable variant of characters in the base games. You can even play as Sumner himself even. In Legends, it's fairly easy with the amount of coins they put in, which are way more than you need, while they are reduced in Dark Legacy, making them harder to obtain. I was surprised I could still pull off Cloud 9 after fluffing up finding runestones earlier in my recent playthrough. In any case, given it's the gameplay of Gauntlet, don't expect too much in the way of depth. Though I will say, after playing the arcade original and Midway arcade treasures, Gauntlet Legends and Dark Legacy are the Gauntlet games with the most depth. This is evidenced when, in both games, you can toy around with magic potions in ways you couldn't in the old titles. You can release a shockwave around you, can drink a potion that gives you a barrier, or lob a potion like it's a grenade. Frags out! Hell, in Legends, the magic is also used to cure poison fruit as well, while in Dark Legacy, when you get to a certain level, each type of class gets their own special ability with magic potions, so curing fruit of poison is reserved for magic users like the Wizard and Sorceress, as well as their unlockable counterparts being the Jackal and Medusa. Another is a slight improvement in the Dark Legacy version in that there is a combo system with the slow and basic attacks. In Legends, the heavy attack was just tier 1 of the turbo attacks, while in Dark Legacy, you had a separate button for it, allowing for minimal combos, but combos regardless. Speaking of the turbo attacks, they are among your strongest moves in the game. One not as a full bar will give a weaker but fairly strong attack, but a full bar will give their ultimate move. For the Archer, for instance, is a Doom reference. While the Sorceress practices a little necromancy. And if you have co-op partners, you will have a team attack. Of course, Legends introduces into Gauntlet the ability to loot most power-ups as you pick up. Being able to not only hold an item until you need it, you can sell what you don't need. Just like Diablo, or Baldur's Gate Dark Alliance. Unfortunately, Midway initially removed the inventory system in the PlayStation 2 release of Gauntlet Dark Legacy, so when I found out the GameCube and Xbox version returned it, I had to pick up the former. At a solid enough price given the status of retro game shopping for GameCube games today. Anyway, while the inventory system did return for the first game, and I'm glad it did, it felt nerfed, as you can't sell items and it's really hard to tell your time and use limits with the power-ups, unlike the N64 version. Plus, it's hard to tell if you're breaking limits with the items to pick up, as I think items I never use disappear over time, or they don't show up when I do pick them up. Maybe it's a glitch, I don't know, but it's annoying. Still, the inventory system makes all the difference for this game. Having items like anti-death and x-ray glasses on hand for Dark Legacy in particular, including some extra weapon power-ups in both versions, make the game less of a repetitive grind with how many times you hold a button to shoot or smack enemies to death. Unfortunately, in the GameCube version of Dark Legacy, at least with the first print run of the NTSC release, there's a few glitches Midway seemed to overlook. One of the big ones is over the golems and bosses. Most notably, when I fight the dragon and chimera, the magical items you collect that are meant to help beat them a little easier, well, at least with these two, they don't work like they should, as the weapons clip through them when there are supposed to be scenes that freezes the dragon and decapitates one head of the chimera, while the other bosses didn't seem to have this problem. Worse, on all bosses, the enemy's health bar doesn't show up like it does on the N64 and PlayStation 2, making it really hard to tell whether or not you're winning, even when they are taking damage. I also had the game crash at least once on each playthrough I did of the GameCube version. Still, it's playable to the end, but annoying. Though Midway took notice and released a patched version on the GameCube after, in addition to fixing it by the PAL release. Beyond that, it's simple Gauntlet gameplay that controls fine enough. What I should talk about before I move on is the replay value. And no matter what version of Gauntlet Legends or Dark Legacy you play, there's quite a bit. It's Gauntlet. It's obviously best played in local co-op, and unfortunately, Dark Legacy comes out at a time before Sony and Microsoft had their online services up and running, alongside the fact that there are secret levels giving you alternate forms of the base characters. But in the Dark Legacy version, you can start anew on your current file should you want to play again with a different character. On the N64 version, you have to start a new file on your memory card. Kind of a shame, but oh well. On to the visuals. In understanding that this was initially a late 90s arcade game, Gauntlet Legends, at least on N64, actually looked fine on the system. Obviously pared down a bit compared to the detail you would find in the arcade game, but porting over to the N64, it's serviceable. On Gen 6 hardware like the GameCube and PlayStation 2, it's more akin to the arcade game, but it doesn't take too much of the advantages you'd expect these platforms to have. The environments like the desert lands and the ice domain look fine, but others kind of show their age. Still, it's a colorful game that kind of has its charm in its dated looks. Going to the sound, and again it has the charm of arcade games, and on disc, even with the PS1 and Dreamcast version of Legends, it's more arcade accurate. And for obvious reasons with the cartridge, it's not the case with the N64 version. To be fair, it sounds mostly fine, and some of the arcade sounds did port over, but they are a limited variety, though I've noticed Summoner talks a bit more in Legends than he did in Dark Legacy, as evident when you gather a runestone or finding an obelisk.
Excellent! Each obelisk you open strengthens my power and weakens Scorn's hold on me. Find the other tools for us as well. Well done! You will use the 13 runestones that will help restore order to our return when you can.
Though the music in both versions sound great. Obviously you have the arcade quality music tracks on disc, with the limits of the cartridge with the N64. Midway, using the Musix technology provided by Factor 5, who was a Nintendo's second party at the time, managed to make a soundtrack that still fits this game, be it a remake of tracks from the arcade original, or new tracks just for this version. Still, it fits the adventure aspect all the same. Overall, and I'm gonna give it scores a bit too ridiculous, but I don't care, as no matter how I play it, I still love Gauntlet Legends and its Dark Legacy add-on. Personally, even though I played the PlayStation 2 version first, I find the N64 version a bit more special, as it was not only based on the original game, it felt improved by the inventory system, especially when you could sell items specifically in that version, while you couldn't in the GameCube version. And honestly, if there was one Gauntlet game you had to play just to see how the likes of Diablo, Baldur's Gate Dark Alliance, and Minecraft Dungeons were inspired by this series, it's definitely this one. And I'd recommend playing the N64 version first before you get to any version of Dark Legacy, even if it's an updated release like on GameCube or Xbox.